Hello again. I recently to pay a bill for income tax. It's one of the penalties of being self employed that you have to shell out a huge chunk all at once. It's a bitter blow to have to hand over thousands of pounds like that and not receive anything in return. Normally, when you give somebody, well, I won't say exactly how much, but thousands of pounds, you expect to get a car or sort of a new kitchen or something like that. Give it to the government though, and that's the last you see of it. It made me think about the whole subject of income tax. We all have to pay various taxes, of course, and usually we can see why we pay them and what they're used for. I don't like having to pay well over £100 a month for council tax, for example, but I can see that that's fair. For that money, I get a fire brigade, police force, street lights, the rubbish is collected, and so on. I'm getting something for my money. It's a straightforward transaction. I pay the council to do things for me. The same goes for water bills and also those for gas and electricity. I am getting something in return for my money. What about income tax, though? What am I getting for all the money that I give the government there? Income tax was first introduced in Britain at the end of the 18th century. It was an emergency measure to pay for the wars against France. It was very controversial at the time, and throughout the 19th century there was a great deal of opposition to the idea of income tax. Why should the government tax you simply for having an income? There we are, though. I mean, it's an accepted way of life now. What do I actually get for the money which I pay out to the government in this tax? The answer is not very much that I actually want. Would my life be diminished if the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport were to be abolished tomorrow? Probably not. What about the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office? I suspect you could cut that in half and I wouldn't notice or care about it. Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. Working my way through all the government bodies for which I pay leads me to the conclusion that most could probably be dispensed with. After all, the majority of them are pretty new. They've only been around for a few decades and we used to get on perfectly well without them. It looks to me as though the government is in a fair way to becoming all-powerful and exerting its interest and influence into every aspect of my life. Why should I pay for it to do this? I'm one of those people who wishes to see less government, not more. All those ministries and departments aren't producing anything useful. They're not really contributing in any real way to the well-being of people. If we cut back on a lot of them, we could save money and have fewer busybodies poking their noses into our business, which sounds to me like a win-win situation. Even things which we all take for granted as necessary, like the Army and Air Force, aren't really required at all. As long as we have a nuclear submarine patrolling at sea with the ability to destroy any country which attacks or tries to invade Britain, that's sufficient. We don't need any more. We don't need to be interfering in foreign wars and sending troops to Europe or Asia. What good did all those wars in Iraq and Afghanistan do for Britain? As long as we have a nuclear deterrent, nobody will attack Britain, so we don't really need most of our armed forces. I have an idea that if we slimmed down the British government to doing what was really vital and necessary, and I'm thinking here about things like schools, courts and so on, then it would not only be far less expensive to run, there'd be a lot less interference in our lives, and then we could choose what to do with our own money rather than have the government demand a large chunk of our wages for schemes that none of us really want.